What would you do if your father collapsed on a soccer field at halftime, and when you reached him, half his face had stopped working? That's the question 17-year-old Emma Martinez faced on a Saturday afternoon in October, watching her dad, the man who'd never missed one of her games, crumble to the grass while trying to shout instructions to her team. The October sun hung low over the field, casting long shadows across the green turf. David Martinez stood on the sideline in his navy jacket, hands cupped around his mouth. His daughter Emma wore her blue and white uniform, number 14, hair pulled back tight. The championship qualifier was tied 2-2, halftime whistle blew sharp across the field. David took a step forward, the world tilted sideways. His right leg buckled beneath him like someone had cut the strings. He hit the grass hard. Parents, chatter went silent. Emma's head snapped toward the sideline. She saw her father on the ground, right arm twisted at an odd angle, face frozen on one side. Her cleats pounded the grass as she ran. 20 yards felt like miles. She dropped to her knees beside him. "Dad," she said. "Dad, can you hear me?" His left eye tracked her face. His right eye stared somewhere else. She grabbed his left hand and felt it squeeze back. She grabbed his right hand. Nothing. Just dead weight in her palm. Someone was calling 911. A parent who was an EMT pushed through the crowd. Emma held her father's good hand and watched his chest rise and fall. The ambulance siren grew louder in the distance. This morning her biggest worry was the championship game. Now she watched her father's body refuse to obey him, and the soccer ball sitting 20 feet away suddenly meant nothing at all. County General's emergency room smelled like disinfectant in fear. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Maria Martinez burst through the double doors, still wearing her teacher's lanyard, her classroom phone call from a stranger still ringing in her ears. "Your husband's had a stroke? You need to come now." The neurologist met her in a small consultation room with blue walls and a box of tissues on the table. Dr. Patel had kind eyes and 20 years of delivering bad news. "Your husband suffered a massive left-hemisphere stroke," she said. "The CT scan shows significant damage. His right side is paralyzed." Maria's hands gripped the armrests until her knuckles went white. "Will he walk again?" Dr. Patel paused. "We'll know more in 72 hours. But you should prepare yourselves. Most patients with this level of damage don't regain full mobility." David lay in the ICU behind glass walls. Machines beeped steadily. His right arm rested useless on white sheets. Maria stood at the window watching tubes snake from his body to plastic bags hanging above him. Emma appeared beside her mother, still in her soccer uniform, grass stains on her knees. "We were winning," Emma whispered. "He was yelling about defense. Then he just fell." Maria pulled her daughter close. They stood there together, watching the man who had always been their rock try to lift his hand and fail. The next 3 days moved like cold honey. David opened his eyes, but the world had changed. His mouth wouldn't form words correctly. The right side of his face drooped. When he tried to stand, his leg dragged behind him like an anchor. Nurses helped him to the bathroom. His 14-year-old son Lucas visited once, turned pale, and didn't come back. 9-year-old Sophia drew pictures at home but refused to enter the hospital. Dr. Patel returned on day 4. "The good news is the stroke hasn't progressed," she said. "The damage is stable. The bad news is significant. Right side paralysis, speech difficulties, limited hand function. We're transferring you to our rehabilitation center. With aggressive therapy, you may regain some mobility." She paused, pen tapping against her clipboard. "Most stroke patients plateau after 6 months. Whatever function returns by then, is usually all you get. David stared at the ceiling tiles. 42 years old. A construction foreman who'd built half the houses in his neighborhood. A man whose hands were always busy fixing, building, creating. Now he couldn't hold a fork, couldn't button his shirt, couldn't stand without someone catching him. He turned his head away from Maria and closed his eyes. The rehabilitation center occupied the west wing of County General. It smelled like rubber mats and determination. Physical therapy happened in a large gym with parallel bars, exercise balls, and floor mats the color of storm clouds. David arrived in a wheelchair he hated. His first therapist was encouraging but clinical. "We'll do our best," she said. "Just manage your expectations." Week 2 brought small victories that felt like defeats. David wiggled 3 toes on his right foot. He lifted his arm 6 inches. He stood between parallel bars for 11 seconds before his leg gave out. The medical staff praised these moments. David wanted to scream. 11 seconds. He used to carry 100-pound bags of concrete up ladders. Maria brought the kids during week 3. Sophia had drawn a picture of their family, everyone holding hands. She taped it to the parallel bars with purple masking tape. Lucas brought their dad's phone loaded with his workout playlist. Emma stood in the doorway and watched her father struggle to take a single shuffling pace. She stayed for 10 minutes, then left. Maria found her crying in the parking lot. "I can't watch him like this," Emma said. "That's not my dad." Week 4 arrived with a new physical therapist. Rachel Chen walked into the gym carrying a clipboard and wearing purple scrubs. She had dark hair pulled into a practical ponytail, and the kind of calm that made noise feel unnecessary. She pulled up a chair beside David's wheelchair. "I'm Rachel," she said. "I'll be working with you from now on." David barely looked at her. "What's the point?" he said, words still slurred around the edges. "Doctor said I'm done." Rachel set down her clipboard. She met his eyes. "Did they?" she asked. "Or did they say recovery would be hard?" "There's a difference." David's jaw tightened. "You don't understand. I'm never going to be who I was." Rachel nodded slowly. "You're right," she said. "You'll be someone who fought back from a stroke. That's different. Better, maybe. Harder, definitely." She stood and moved to the parallel bars. "Come on," she said. "Let's see what you can do." David wanted to refuse. Something in her steady gaze made him reach for the wheelchair controls instead. She helped transfer him to standing position between the bars. Her hands were sure but not invasive. "Ready?" she asked. He wasn't. They started anyway. That first session lasted 45 minutes. David managed 8 shuffling paces with support. His leg dragged behind him. Sweat soaked through his shirt and dripped down his temples. Rachel counted each pace aloud, her voice even and unhurried. When he finally collapsed back into the wheelchair, breathing hard, she handed him water. "Good work," she said. "Same time tomorrow." What David didn't know, what Rachel never mentioned, was that she'd been praying since the moment she read his chart. Silent prayers while she reviewed his scans. Whispered words while she helped him stand. Quiet petitions to a God she'd been talking to since childhood. She'd learned long ago that faith and physical therapy worked better together. Some therapists brought sports medicine expertise. Rachel brought that plus something else. A belief that healing happened in ways charts couldn't always predict. Month 2 arrived cold and gray. David had moved from wheelchair to walker. Progress, the doctors called it. Torture, David called it privately. Every therapy session felt like climbing a mountain with no summit. Rachel pushed him exactly hard enough. Not cruel, but relentless. 5 more paces. 3 more minutes. 1 more repetition. The parallel bars became his world. Chrome rails cold under his left palm, right hand barely gripping. David would stand between them, legs shaking, and try to remember what walking used to feel like. Automatic. Thoughtless. Now every movement required a committee meeting in his brain. Lift the leg. Shift the weight. Don't fall. Don't fall. Don't fall. Rachel worked beside him without excess words. She adjusted his hip position with professional hands. She counted his movements like they mattered. And every session, though David didn't know it, she prayed. Not out loud, not obviously, just a constant conversation with God running underneath her clinical observations. Help him find strength, guide my hands, let him see progress. Simple words woven through complex work. Month 3 brought micro victories. David gripped a tennis ball. The green felt rough against his palm. His right toes wiggled on command. He stood for 30 seconds unassisted before gravity won. The medical staff was impressed. "This is good progress," Dr. Patel said during a check-in, her stethoscope hanging around her neck. "Just remember to temper your expectations. The 6-month plateau is real for most patients." Maria started bringing the kids more regularly. Sophia's drawings multiplied along the parallel bars. Purple flowers, yellow suns, stick figures holding hands. Lucas downloaded new music, 80s rock his father loved, and played it from his phone during sessions. Emma came twice, staying longer each time. She watched her father take 3 shuffling movements and burst into tears. "I'm sorry," she said, wiping her face with the back of her hand. "It's just, you're trying so hard." David's throat tightened. "I'm trying, baby," he managed. "I'm trying." The church got involved in month 4. St. Catherine's organized a prayer chain. Meals arrived at the Martinez house 3 times a week. Casseroles, lasagnas, homemade bread that filled the kitchen with warmth. Father Miguel visited every Sunday, sitting beside David's workout mat in his black shirt and white collar. The priest never offered empty platitudes. He just sat there, present, occasionally reading psalms in his accented English. Sometimes that was enough. Month 5 brought David's first unassisted paces. 3 wobbling movements before Rachel caught him. The gym erupted in applause. Other patients, therapists, even the custodian who'd been mopping nearby. David's eyes burned. 3 movements. 3 movements felt like crossing an ocean. Then month 6 arrived with its predictions. Dr. Patel reviewed the charts, her finger tracing the recovery curve. "You've made remarkable progress," she said. "Better than we expected. But you're approaching the typical plateau point. Most recovery happens in the first 6 months. After that, gains become minimal." She closed the folder with a soft snap. "We'll continue therapy, of course. But it's time to start thinking about long-term accommodation. Handrails at home. Possible disability applications." David heard remarkable progress as, "This is as good as it gets." That night he lay awake in the darkness, staring at shadows on the ceiling. 6 months felt like a prison sentence. The victories stopped coming. He'd gained back maybe 40% function. The other 60% felt set in concrete. Month 7 proved the doctors right. David's progress stalled. Rachel kept pushing. David kept trying. The numbers on the chart flatlined. His hands still couldn't button a shirt. His legs still dragged, like he was pulling a weighted sled. During one session, he swept the therapy balls off the mat. They bounced across the floor with hollow thuds. "I'm done," he said. "This isn't working, we're wasting time." Rachel picked up the balls without commenting. She placed them back on the mat, one by one. Then she sat down beside him. "Why are you still here?" David asked, voice bitter and raw. "The doctors wrote me off 2 months ago. You should too." Rachel was quiet for a long moment. The gym's fluorescent lights hummed above them. Because I don't think you're finished, she finally said. That's not medical opinion, that's just what I believe. Month 9 brought the insurance companies questions. They wanted to know why David was still receiving aggressive therapy. The medical director suggested transitioning to maintenance care, twice-weekly sessions instead of daily. Rachel requested a meeting. She sat across from the director in his office that smelled like coffee and paper. I'd like to continue the current protocol, she said. I believe he has more recovery potential. The medical director was skeptical. He's past the typical window, he said, leaning back in his leather chair. The data suggests. Rachel interrupted gently. I understand the data, she said. I'm asking for 3 more months. The director looked at her over his glasses. You've been doing this long enough to know the statistics, Rachel. Why are you fighting so hard for this case? Rachel met his gaze. Because I believe he's not finished yet, she said. They gave her 3 months. David didn't know about the meeting. He just knew Rachel kept showing up, kept pushing, kept believing when he couldn't. Month 10 arrived with winter cold seeping through gym windows that rattled in their frames. David's 43rd birthday passed quietly. He'd gained another 5% function. 5% in 4 months. The math was brutal. Then came the breaking point. Month 10, 3rd week. David was working on stepping up onto a low platform. His leg wouldn't cooperate. He tried 6 times. Failed 6 times. Rachel positioned herself to spot him. One more, she said. Try again. Something in David snapped. He turned on her, face flushed red. Why are you doing this? He shouted. Why won't you just let me give up? The gym went silent. Other patients stopped mid-exercise. Rachel remained still, her face calm. David's chest heaved. You keep pushing like something's going to change, he said. But it's not. This is it. This is all I get. I'm 43 years old, and I can't manage 6 inches. So why won't you just admit defeat and let me quit? Rachel pulled a chair over. The metal legs scraped against the floor. She sat down and looked at him for a long moment. Can I tell you something? She asked. David slumped against the parallel bars, exhausted and angry. She took a breath. I've been praying for you since day 1, David. Every single session. Every exercise. Every failed attempt. I pray you find strength. I pray your body heals. I pray you don't give up. That's why I keep pushing. David stared at her. You've been praying? This whole time? She nodded. I believe there's a reason you're still fighting, she said. I've been a physical therapist for 10 years. I've seen too many people give up when they had more in them. I've also seen miracles happen in this room. Small ones. Slow ones. But real. And I don't think God's finished with your story yet. Tears ran down David's face. He didn't try to stop them. You really believe that? He whispered. Rachel's eyes were steady and sure. I do, she said. But you have to believe it too. Science gives us probabilities. Faith gives us possibilities. You need both. That night, David told Maria about the conversation. She held his hand, the good one, and cried. I've been praying too, she said. Every morning, every night. The whole church has. We've been asking God to help you heal. David looked at their joined hands, her wedding ring catching the lamplight. Maybe it's time I started asking too, he said. Month 11 brought a shift. David prayed before therapy now, simple words. God, help me do this. Give me strength. Let something change. The physical work stayed hard. His muscles still screamed. But something in his chest settled. He was fighting with instead of against now. The church prayer chain intensified. People David barely knew sent messages through Maria's phone, praying for you, don't give up, believing for your healing. Father Miguel came twice a week now, bringing communion, sitting in silence. Maria started a journal with a blue fabric cover, writing down every small victory. Right ankle flexed today. Stood 40 seconds. Took 5 paces. Physical records of answered prayers, even tiny ones. Month 12 brought Lucas and Sophia to therapy sessions. Lucas researched exercises online. His face lit by the computer screen at night, printed them out on printer paper, asked Rachel if they'd help. Sophia made up posters with crayons. "You can do it, Dad," in red letters. "Keep going," in blue. She taped them everywhere with bright tape. Parallel bars, wall mirrors, even the door to the men's bathroom. Emma came more frequently. She'd finished her fall semester of college. One afternoon, she watched her father take 8 consecutive movements, farther than he'd ever gone. She stood and applauded, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Dad," she said. "Dad, you're doing it." David wobbled but stayed upright. She crossed the gym and hugged him carefully, aware he might fall. "I'm sorry I couldn't watch before," she whispered against his shoulder. "It hurt too much. But I'm here now." Month 13 arrived with unexpected news. Emma called from college, voice shaking with joy. She was engaged. Her boyfriend Ryan had proposed on Christmas Eve, with a ring that caught the light. The wedding was set for June, 18 months post-stroke. Maria cried happy tears in the kitchen. David felt his throat close up. His baby girl getting married. Later that week, Emma visited the gym. She sat beside her father during a break, both of them on the blue mat. "Dad," she said quietly, "I know this is a lot to ask. I know you're still working so hard. But I was wondering." She paused, gathering courage. "Do you think you could walk me down the aisle?" David's vision blurred. "Baby," he said, "I'll do everything I can." New motivation flooded through him. The wedding was 6 months away. The church aisle at St. Catherine's was 50 feet long. David could currently manage maybe 20 feet with his forearm crutch. The math required a miracle, or a lot of work, or both. Rachel heard about the goal. She sat down with David and mapped it out on graph paper. 50 feet unassisted, she said. "That's ambitious." He nodded, jaw set. "I have to try," he said. "For Emma. For myself." Rachel studied his face. "Then let's design a protocol," she said. "We've got 6 months. Let's make them count." The intensity increased. Longer sessions, new exercises. Rachel consulted with colleagues, researched approaches, built a program specifically for this goal. The medical staff watched with interest. Dr. Patel stopped calling it maintenance therapy. The nurses started calling it the wedding prep plan. Month 14 brought slow but measurable gains. David managed 25 feet. Then 30. His legs still dragged but less severely. The limp was pronounced but manageable. Rachel pushed him through fatigue, through pain, through the voice that said this was impossible. After every session, she prayed the same prayer, lips barely moving. Let him walk his daughter down the aisle. Let him have this moment. Month 15 tested everything. David hit another plateau. Progress stopped dead. His body seemed to say, "This far, no further." Frustration returned like an old enemy. Maybe he should just use the wheelchair. Maybe asking Emma to watch him struggle down the aisle was selfish. Father Miguel came that week. The priest sat cross-legged on the gym mat beside David. "You know what faith is?" he asked. David shook his head. "Faith is taking the next stride when you can't see the whole staircase," Father Miguel said. "You don't need to see June. You just need to see tomorrow. Tomorrow's therapy session. Tomorrow's prayer. Tomorrow's pace. That's all." Month 16 brought Emma home for spring break. She came to therapy every day, wearing her college sweatshirt. She held the parallel bars while her father moved between them, counted his movements, cheered every inch of progress. One afternoon, watching him cover 35 feet, she whispered to Maria, "He's going to do it, Mom. He's really going to walk me down the aisle." Month 17 was April. Dogwoods bloomed outside the gym windows. The wedding was 8 weeks away. David could manage 40 feet with the forearm crutch. He needed 50 feet without it. Rachel adjusted the plan. They practiced specifically with the church aisle's dimensions. She even visited St. Catherine's, measured the exact distance with a tape measure, came back with a floor plan. The medical director stopped by the gym one afternoon. He watched David cover 42 feet before his leg gave out. "Unprecedented," the director murmured, shaking his head slowly. "I've been doing this 30 years. I've never seen this level of recovery past the 1-year mark." Rachel caught David's eye across the room. They both knew why. Prayer and persistence. Science and faith, both working together. 2 weeks before the wedding, David covered 50 feet. He used the forearm crutch, but he made the full distance. Rachel cried. First time she'd broken professional composure in David's presence. She quickly wiped her face with her sleeve. "Sorry," she said. "I don't usually." David interrupted. "Thank you," he said. "For everything. For believing. For praying. For not giving up on me." Rachel smiled through tears. "You did the work," she said. "I just believed you could." That final week they practiced in the actual church. Father Miguel opened St. Catherine's after hours when the building was quiet. David traversed the burgundy runner over and over. 50 feet. Each walk getting steadier. Emma watched from the front pew, her hand over her mouth. Ryan stood at the altar, witness to something that shouldn't be possible but was. June 3rd arrived with sunshine streaming through St. Catherine's stained glass windows. Blue and gold light fell across stone floors like liquid color. 200 guests filled wooden pews that creaked softly. Emma waited in the vestibule wearing her grandmother's wedding dress, white lace falling to the floor in gentle folds. David stood beside her in a charcoal suit, no crutch, no walker, just his daughter's arm linked through his. The organ began. Jesu, joy of man's desiring, the notes rising and falling like water. Emma looked at her father. "You ready?" she whispered. David's throat was too tight to speak. He nodded. The doors opened with a soft groan. Heads turned. First stride. David felt his leg tremble but hold. Emma's hand tightened on his forearm. Second stride. Stronger. Third stride. The congregation couldn't help themselves. Someone started clapping. Then another. Then the whole church erupted in applause that echoed off stone walls. They knew the story. They'd prayed the prayers. They'd watched this man fight for 18 months to take these movements. David kept going, leg dragging slightly, but steady. Emma matched his pace, tears streaming down her face and catching the colored light. "You're doing it, Dad," she whispered. "You're actually doing it." They passed pews filled with faces David knew. His construction crew in their Sunday best. His neighbors. The church prayer chain members. Rachel sat in the back row, hands clasped, praying one more time. 40 feet. David's heart pounded in his ears, but his feet stayed true. Maria sat in the front pew, hand over her mouth, watching her husband walk their daughter to her future. Lucas and Sophia gripped each other's hands, knuckles white. 50 feet felt like 500. It felt like 5 inches. They reached the altar. Father Miguel's eyes were wet behind his glasses. Ryan moved forward to take Emma's hand. Emma turned to her father. "Thank you, Daddy," she whispered. She kissed his cheek, her lips soft against his skin. David's vision blurred. He looked at his daughter, radiant and whole, and whispered back, "Thank you for giving me something to walk for." 3 years later, David Martinez still moves every day. His leg carries a slight limp. His hand isn't as strong as it once was. But he covers ground. He returned to work part-time, managing projects from an office chair instead of climbing ladders. He coaches Sophia's soccer team from the sideline, moving without crutches, shouting instructions like he used to. Every Saturday, he volunteers at County General's stroke support group. He tells his story to newly paralyzed patients who can't imagine a future. "I'm not gonna lie to you," he says. "It's hard. Harder than anything you'll face. The work is brutal. The progress is slow. But I had people who believed in me when I couldn't believe in myself. I had a wife who prayed. I had kids who made ridiculous posters. I had a physical therapist who never stopped praying during our sessions. And I'm standing here today telling you, don't give up before the miracle." Rachel Chen still works at the rehabilitation center. She keeps David's wedding photo on her desk. Father and daughter mid-aisle, both crying, both smiling. When colleagues ask about her success rate, she deflects. "I just do the work," she says, and trust that healing happens in its own time. But privately, she knows the truth. Sometimes faith and science work together. Sometimes the hands that heal also pray. Sometimes the miracle isn't instant healing. Sometimes it's found in 18 months of grinding work, silent prayers, and refusing to accept the limitations others draw for you.